Good morning, everybody. Góðan daginn. Welcome to this webinar that we are giving now. This is our fifth webinar in this series that we are giving on various topics. Today we are going to talk about how to bring carbon into the soil. And if you could push forward, Pius, please. So this meeting is held by Vege and Plant Health Cure in the Netherlands. Our objectives are two. One of them is to educate on sustainable growing methods for all kinds of growers, both organic and non-organic growers, and then to supply with fertilizer, organic fertilizer for farmers and growers in Iceland. Today's topic, it's wrongly stated there, but we are going to talk about carbon binding. And we will mention 2 or 3 products, Terra Plus, Pulse, Fulvic 25, and Mycorrhiza. Towards the end of the meeting, we will have a discussion which will be very interesting, I believe, for ±5 minutes. And then we will talk about the 2 last webinars that we will give in the next months or so. This meeting is being recorded, and it will be contacted in English, but you can ask questions in Icelandic. So Pius, take it away.
Thank you very much. Góðan daginn, all of you. I just copied that from Hjörtur. Thank you for being here. First of all, I really want to wish you, on behalf of PHC and Vege, a very happy and healthy new year. Stay healthy, and I wish you a good new year. And we all dream of being able to travel again. So thank you for being present on this webinar. However, I must say, I rather do live seminars. That's more my thing. Today we talk about carbon. What is that? What is carbon? Life evolves around carbon. All living things are made of carbon. There's not a single living organism without carbon. And we breathe out carbon. We inhale 21% oxygen. We exhale 14% oxygen and about 7% carbon dioxide. So that's what we do in life. So we produce carbon dioxide. And plants absorb carbon dioxide big time. Most plant species, not all, most plant species, they absorb carbon dioxide at night. Some do that during the daytime, and it helps the process of photosynthesis. So carbon is essential. Life evolves around carbon. What does it look like? Well, you all know a pencil, and pencils are made of carbon. It's the black powder, graphite, that you write with pencils with. And carbon dioxide is the gas that we exhaust if we use carbon. And soil carbon is basically the soil health parameter. All of the physical properties of soil are increased. The cation, the CEC exchange capacity is increased. Carbon means soil health, but not always, and not in all ways, because stone coal that you burn in ovens is, of course, also carbon. Brown coal is carbon. Peat is carbon. So for the biggest part. So all this organic matter basically helps to make soils healthy and resilient. And the soil organic carbon provides the binding sites for many chemicals. It holds on to chemicals. It stops leaching of fertilizers and chemicals to the groundwater. And the more healthy the soil is, the more carbon it contains, and the more carbon it contains, the less leaching there will be. So that's very nice for our children and grandchildren. So basically, the carbon in the soil is the source of energy for most microorganisms, and these microorganisms, they break down the chemicals for the most part. And there are, but I said that in previous lectures, soil life is very active for all kinds of systems around roots. All of these webinars, they will be introduced on the website and on YouTube, of course. So you can look back. If this is your first time, you can look back later. Soil carbon number 3. Plants create organic matter. And the dead organic matter after plants die, we harvest, and then we eat, and then we exclude these carbons, and again, then it all turns into dead organic matter, and that's food for microbes. That's food for soil life. And they respire, and they create carbon dioxide back to the atmosphere. So basically, if you have more carbon in the soil and in the rocks, we will come back to that, done by soil biology, by the bacteria, by the fungi in the soil that hold on to the carbon, you will have less carbon dioxide. So the soil is a sink for carbon. We come back to that later. And there's 2 types of carbon. We have the biomass carbon, which is in the living bacteria and fungi, and the bacteria and the fungi itself, and the non-biomass carbon. That's basically the dead stuff. Cellulase, starch, lignin, hemocellulose, that's the dead stuff. And that product binds the soil particles together in the soil structure. And the non-biomass carbon will later on produce humus. I will come back to that. But there's always a complexity there, because there is nothing in nature that acts on its own. So you cannot make a very sharp line between biomass carbon and non-biomass carbon. It is really difficult to draw the line. But rocks, stones can bind carbon. There's a lot of literature on this. Like olivine, the green olivine is a real carbon consumer. It sequesters carbon like nothing else. Better than basalt, but also basalt sequesters carbon really rapidly. Later on, you can, if you're interested, you can go back to the websites here, but there's many more that describe how rocks, mountains, stones absorb carbon dioxide. And even in Iceland, you can see that carbon dioxide can be injected into the soil, into the deeper layers, and together with water, the carbon dioxide will be pumped into the ground very deep, where it can be stored for many hundreds of thousands of years, if we wish. And then some of the carbon particles, they change into humus. I would really appreciate if you would take the time to read this book or deepen yourself into it, because humus, is it a substance or a living system? There's always a question about it. I really think it's part of a living system. It is part of a cycling system that we have forgotten. And we simply have forgotten things because we invented chemical fertilizers, and we thought with these fertilizers we invented the world. We were able to mass produce food. We were able to do anything we would on the most infertile land, and we could grow things with fertilizer and water. Yes, but like you know, just as good as I do, everything has a price. And the price with chemical fertilizers is rather high. I'll come back to that. Carbon is not humus. I hear so many times that people call compost humus or humus compost. No, there's a huge difference. And humus contains about 60% amorph carbon. You cannot recognize plant particles there. Humus is stable. It's protected from decomposition by microbial and enzyme action. And it's hidden. It's inside the soil aggregates. And the humus is, of course, organic matter that has not changed into carbon dioxide, which is logic. And actually, the difference is very distinct. Humus is created through anaerobic fermentation, and compost is the result of aerobic decomposition. Or, if I may say so, compost is a beautiful product. It's a totally natural process, but in nature you won't find compost. So that's a copy of a decomposition process. And if you add compost to the soil, don't mix it in, add compost to the soil on top, then that compost might turn into humus, provided that you don't use synthetic fertilizers, because then that compost will change into carbon dioxide in no time. I will come back to that. Is it plant food? No, humus is not a direct plant food. However, there's no black and white in nature. It's not a direct plant food, but the mycorrhizal fungi that interconnect with the roots, they play a very important role in the carbon allocation in the plants, because plants do absorb organic matter. Fertilizer people don't want us to know that, but they don't, because they cannot make money on it. But plants do absorb organic matter, not only elements, not only minerals. They do absorb organic matter. And if you're interested, read all about it. And of course, mycorrhizal fungi, they help the plant. But going back to the mycorrhizae, life is mutual. So mycorrhizae are very important to the soil. Not much is written about it. If you read about mycorrhizae, most literature is what is the effect of mycorrhizae on the plant? No. We turn it around. What is the effect of mycorrhizae on the plant for the soil? And there you can see that 50 to 70% of the total carbon level in the soil is bound by the mycorrhizae. And there's a lot of literature on it. Eat your heart out. I was very interested in the report from the Agricultural University of Iceland. Thank you very much for this report. I took the liberty of using some of the images from this report because they are striking. They're very striking, and we should be warned, and at the same time we should be ashamed. Of course, I couldn't read it, but I can read the pictures and the graphs in the report. So if you look at the possibility of binding carbon dioxide of what is lost in cattle and lamb sheep farming, we can do better. We, humanity, you people of Iceland, we all can do better. And this is unpronounceable for me, but you probably know where it is. This is a striking, amazing picture. Look what happened to this land. Iceland was a forest, used to be a forest. And look what happened by whatever happens. And this man here gives you the size. So can you imagine what the carbon dioxide exhaust is during these erosion processes? It is really something to think about. In the report, we found all kinds of methods and systems to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but also for the reduction of emissions from land and to bind the greenhouse gases in the ecosystem. That's what we can do. That's our responsibility. That's why we can plant trees. It's one of the best ways to plant trees to reduce the greenhouse gases and keep on planting. Hjörtur was so kind enough to help me with the translation, because I really still don't know what AFOC is. Never couldn't find out. Anyway, you can see we have influence. We do have influence. We can bind as much as we lose from the wetlands that are drying up. We can really make a difference by taking care of soil, by understanding what carbon is, understanding what harm carbon dioxide does to our lives, to our families. What the report doesn't mention, and that's not for Iceland only, but that's for reports worldwide. Nobody in agriculture, in the industry, nobody takes into account what the production of synthetic fertilizer means and what it does. I think the effect, the negative effect on the carbon dioxide exhaust in the world due to the use of synthetic fertilizers is immense. It's huge. And it's not in the literature. That's why I want you with these lines to do the math yourself. If you look at just the production of synthetic fertilizer, it takes to produce 1 kilo of nitrogen, pure nitrogen, that takes 35 megajoule energy per kilo. That's the equivalent of 1 liter diesel. If I talk to farmers and I said, you're actually spreading 100 liter diesel per hectare. No, that's not true. Well, it is. That's what you have with 100 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare. And in the Netherlands, 160 kilo is allowed. So in total. But 100 kilo pure N per hectare, that's 265 kilograms of carbon dioxide. And and 70% of the nitrogen is not even used by the plant. It's leaching out immediately. So you can imagine what it does. What you will have is a huge increase of bacterial activity, because there's a CN ratio of 15 to 1. For each nitrogen that you provide to the bacteria are forced to consume 15 carbons. 15 carbons, that means that when these are consumed, that's carbon dioxide. So that changes the soil. And we have many reports. We do a lot of research. And you see what happens? If you do a research 1 year, you will not measure anything in the land. We have 5-year results where you can see that if you stop with the synthetic fertilizing, your soil and your soil quality, the carbon binding increases dramatically. Because the problem is most of the research is done in, let's say, 1 year cycles. That's not valuable in agriculture, really not, because we depend on the soil. Going back to the bacteria, they have to consume the carbon in order to absorb the nitrogen. So basically, and you can try that in your own backyard. Put some organic matter on the ground, put some urea on it, and see how fast it is dissolved, changed into carbon dioxide. So the use of these synthetic fertilizers, and that's the biggest problem that I have, it's not only the 35 megajoule that it takes to make the product, but the use leads to a huge breakdown of stable soil humus. And it invalidates the soil. It creates a total different set of soil biology by which the soil is not able to produce new humus. And if the soil cannot produce humus, it will not produce fulvics. And the fulvics are the only chelating agent in the world that nature provides us. Fulvic, as a part of humus, as a broken down part of humus, is the most important chelating agent in the world. And for that simple reason, you will not see plants in nature with mineral deficiencies, because it's there. And the fulvic releases it. It binds it, releases it, transports it. It's a miracle of nature, and we buy synthetic fulvic, which comes from brown coal mines. That's another story. But anyway, the use of synthetic nitrogen leads to erosion and degradation of the soil. And by that, the soil is totally enslaved, nothing less or more than a junk. You need to keep on going with synthetic fertilizers. And these are a direct enemy of soil carbon sequestering. So to bring what solutions, refrain from the use of synthetic nitrogen, adapt to the use of animal manure and plant-based fertilizers. Don't do it at once. Reduce the amount of synthetics, increase the amount of organic fertilizers, because you cannot change the soil in 1 year, really. And plants need more than just minerals. They need organic matter. Like I said before, they do absorb organic matter, but it has to be broken down. So it has to be very small. They don't eat leaves, they eat organic matter. Try to adapt to a no-till regime to restore your soil biology. And it really works. And give attention to soil biology. And I mean fungi and bacteria. And I keep saying it because farmers worldwide, they give us the information wherever we go. They say, well, we have a nematode problem. Okay. As a matter of fact, you have a fungal problem. You don't have enough fungi in your soil. Maybe you have been spraying fungicides too much. A little bit is already too much many times, but on the other hand, I don't think that we can do without medicines in the world, and I don't think we can do without plant protection. So you always have to make choices because there is a need to make money. You might want to take a look at some of the products, and I really don't like to advertise in these webinars, but we offer solutions. That's Therapulse. It combines the minerals, basalt, fungi, bacteria, and humus. Fulvic 25 is a natural fulvic from drinking water in the Netherlands. Look at the data, and of course the mycorrhizae. It really helps to increase plant health and soil resilience and soil quality. I think this was my part here. And some of the slides were moved. No, they were not moved. I'm sorry. I think I'm done here for my part.
Yeah.
And time for questions. I leave this to Hjörtur. Thank you.
Thank you, Pius. Always very informative and educational and also provoking what you are saying to some new interesting things. So we are now open for questions. So you can, if you want to ask questions, you can unmute or put your question in the chat box that you could find on the bottom of your screen. Also, you can put the questions in Icelandic or English.
But not only questions, please, also criticism.
Yeah. So the floor is open. This report from the Agriculture University was absolutely so very good report. I think a good basis for discussion. But, you also mentioned that reduction of chemical fertilizers, and I wonder if we reduce use of chemical fertilizers and improve the growing methods of all the growing fields in Iceland, what effect that would make. So it would be interesting to calculate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, waiting for questions. In the comments in when we are advertising this presentation, someone, yeah, there is a question. Do you see the chat box?
Maybe No, I don't see the chat box.
What about culture? Culture.
What culture?
Heukel culture. Heukel, I don't know what that is.
Me neither.
Okay. Okay. Thoughts about
Heukel culture? Heukel culture. I don't know. Emil, no. Emil, please.
Yeah.
Permaculture. Heukel culture.
Then there is a thought. Your thoughts on using manure from animals in this context? Yes.
Yes, very, very important. People eat plants and animals that have eaten plants. So we are all in the cycle, and animal manure is very useful. And if you look at the laws in Europe, we have made animal manure to a waste product to increase the use of synthetic fertilizers. These are really old laws, and if you look at permaculture, for instance, if you look at every organic farmer that is successful over the years, they use animal manure. That it is essential. And in China, they use even people shit, which is the future anyway, to have a closed cycle. But yeah, we really do not need the nitrogen that is synthetically produced. We do not need it. We are addicted to it, but we do not need it. I don't know if I need to explain that more.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? Remarks? Discussions? Nobody angry? How about natural minerals in the soil? Thank you, Emil. Yes, but plants don't eat minerals. Plants eat nutrients. So the minerals have to be made available by bacteria and fungi. But if you use inorganic products under salt pressure, guided by salt nitrogen, then they are basically pushed into the plant. They're absorbed, yes, and plants can grow from it. But natural minerals in the soil are very important. One of the things is that if you measure in people, most people, of the more than 30 elements that we find in people, less than 1% counts for half of the minerals, less than 1%. These are the minerals that come from the rocks, from the stone. And these minerals, they are minuscule. We call them rare earth elements. And they're so little, then altogether, these 15 elements, they take 1% of the total human body. We have eaten plants, we have eaten animals that eat plants, so the minerals come from the soil. And they come from basically from the rocks, from granite, from basalt, etc. Broken down by plants, broken down by fungi, bacteria, etc. What we now take into account is that these 1% of very many minerals in the soil, they are really important for our health. And that's another way of saying that, and it might be another discussion. We can come back to that later. But it is really important to look at the minerals that plants really need. Binding carbon in the soil as a part of a voluntary carbon offset. Do you know of any successful programs? Yeah, there's many programs. Ern has asked this question. Binding carbon is taking place in Austria, and farmers are really paid for it. And they bind carbon, and they are very successful. There's a lot of information on it. And there are successful programs worldwide. Emil, talking to plants or playing their music? Well, I never did that, but I do know that plants have a language. They do communicate. We're not able to talk with them, but communication is for all living organisms. If you play their music, it's fine with me. In my case, the neighbors would start complaining. From John, are your numbers for N-leaching universal? In Iceland, there is a huge N shortage due to erosion and grazing. Would that number be different there? No, thank you for the question. No, it's the same everywhere. Look at how plants grow. They use 4 to 7% of the soil in their area for root growth. So only if you account for that, and if you realize that only in the rhizosphere, the minerals can be absorbed with synthetic nitrogen through osmotic pressure and ionic exchange, then you can worldwide calculate that 70% leaches out. I don't think there's a different number in Iceland. No. What you lack in a very mineral soil, you have beautiful mineral soils, is the biology to release the minerals. So I would really encourage, and Hjörtur can share that information with you. I would encourage to look at the farmers that already work in Iceland, on Iceland, with some of our products. Hjörtur, anything to add to that? That was the last question that I could read.
No, I think this is very good. So we are little over 30 minutes, so I think it's good for now. But so I think we should thank you again for answering those questions, and thank you for asking those questions to the audience. So if we will look ahead into, if we will page forward, please, Pius, upcoming webinars. What the next one?
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Hang on, so maybe I can squeeze in here something.
Yeah, our next webinar is after 2 weeks, and you will talk about folio feeding, which is one of your favorite, I believe. Yeah. Blaðnæring, folio feeding, really important to talk about that.
Yes.
Something new.
Yeah.
And then the last one, at least that we have planned, will be about trends in environmental legislation. So talk a little bit what is ahead in the coming year in the environments for the farmers and where everything is heading. Then next couple of slides are reminders of about our Facebook pages, a lot of information there. Also, next one is our YouTube channel with good information. All the previous presentations, the webinars are there. And your film, I also want to mention your film, what is there in the middle, which is really, really interesting in this context. How to increase the fertility in the ground. And it also talks about carbon binding.
How do you find Vege on YouTube? Because if I hit Vege on YouTube, I get all kinds of vegetarian films.
So you go to our Facebook page and find it from there. So
on the Facebook, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you have to go through Facebook then. Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to maybe put some of the things you see written on the screen in Icelandic, and then you will find it. Okay, the next slide, please, is our website, which will be updated next week and also with new price list for 2021. And the next one is your lot of information on your website, Pius.
We do have an English version.
Yeah, it's very good information there. And the last one, I believe, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. And if there are something that you would like to ask us about, you can do it until the next meeting also. Thank you, Pius. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Hjörtur. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest. Stay healthy. See you next time.
Bye-bye.